We finally got the trailer for Jurassic World Rebirth, and with that, there comes a lot of discussion and a lot of talk about the brand new creatures that are showcased in this trailer. But one of the creatures that is talked about the most is the Spinosaurus, for a few different reasons. Of course, one of those reasons being that this is the first time in 24 years that we'll be seeing the Spinosaurus on the big screen in a Jurassic film. But another reason is because it has a different design. There's a lot of folks who don't like the design, there's a lot of folks who do like the design, but there's also that camp who are kind of debating on whether or not this is an accurate design of the animal, or at least that's what I've seen in my TikTok comment sections. There's been a few debates on whether or not this is a good representation of the real life animal. So that's what I want to talk about. I want to take a look at this design and compare it to its real life animal, and we'll see if this is truly an accurate design, or if it's at the very least closer than the Jurassic Park 3 Spinosaurus. So without further ado, let's get into it. Now, the best image that we have of this new Spinosaurus comes in the form of this one, where it's attacking the boat, of course. We get a pretty good look at its head, as well as a little bit of the body. So first, I'll focus on the head, and then we'll talk about the body a little bit later in the video. So the head is, of course, quite a bit different from the Jurassic Park 3 Spinosaurus. The Jurassic Park 3 Spinosaurus has a snout that is a little bit more reminiscent to a baryonyx snout. This skull in general, a lot of people have compared it to the Jurassic World baryonyx. And at first I didn't really see that comparison or that parallel, but now that I look at it a little bit more, and the more I stare at it, the more I see why that conclusion was drawn. See, the Jurassic World baryonyx, it has a very broad snout. It's quite a bit different to its real-life counterparts. With this one, it's very broad at the base of the snout, but it starts to thin out as you get to the tip of the snout. So, of course, the base of the snout is a little bit more similar to the baryonyx, but the front is a little bit different. It's just overall a lot more blocky and jagged towards the base of the snout compared to the real-life animal. The real-life animal had a snout that was way more thin and just a lot more consistent throughout the entirety of the snout. So yeah, that right there is, of course, a difference. It does have a notch right here, which is consistent with the real-life Spinosaurus, and the lower jaw, the mandible, doesn't really look too far off. The teeth also don't look too bad. I can't really get a good look at them because they're kind of like blurred out due to the motion blur. But they do seem like they're a little bit more straight and conical, which is consistent with Spinosaurus. Again, the rest of the skull is overall just a lot more blocky, and you can really see this fenestre that is situated right behind the eye. Like, it's really prominent right there. I don't know what, like, the rest of the skull isn't as shrink wrapped for whatever reason. The ear is just really shrink wrapped. I don't know why that is. One thing that is noticeably missing, though, is the crest that is situated right in front of Spinosaurus's eyes. I mean, I think it is there. You can see it in the toy for it. It's like a very reduced crest. But it's not nearly as prominent as it likely would have been on the animal. But it is also important to note that there are 3 Spinosauruses here, and each of their sails seem to be different. So that might imply that each model is going to be different. So maybe the other ones will have a crest or something like that, or they'll just look slightly different. That is one thing to keep in mind with this. This could just be the way that this individual looks and doesn't necessarily represent all 3 of them. Okay, so I was actually going through the trailer one more time, and I noticed this Spinosaurus that was swimming back here, and I noticed that you can actually see what looks like a little bit more of a pronounced crest right there. Of course, the camera will probably be zoomed in. Of course, this kind of just does add to the idea that these are likely different models, like slightly different models from each other. So maybe this one will overall be a little bit more accurate in terms of the skull. Who knows? I'm excited to see. Next up, we'll move on to the neck. So this neck is very stubby. It is a very short neck. I'm sure that many of you have seen several different reconstructions of Spinosaurus or other Spinosaurids with relatively long necks that kind of have a little bit of an S curve. That is, of course, what is most likely for the animal, rather than having a neck that is just this short and, a head that is that close to the torso. The arms don't really look too bad. They do seem like proper, huge, powerful Spinosaurid arms. It is worth mentioning that we've never actually found Spinosaurus arms. I think we've only ever found a finger. But that's pretty much the extent of it. So we fill in those gaps by looking at other Spinosaurids that do have their arms, such as Suchomimus and Baryonyx. And these look pretty consistent with that. It's huge and powerful, and the claws look pretty good as well. You have this claw that's closest to the animal's head that is a little bit larger than the other two. That is pretty consistent with dinosaurs like Baryonyx, so it seems like it's consistent with this. So we'll go ahead and move on from the head, and we'll look at the rest of the body. So of course, like I mentioned before, we did have the Mattel figure that was revealed, and it looks a lot like this. And assuming this is pretty accurate to the on-screen version, we can just simply go off of this. So the body doesn't really look bad. It has that classic theropod body shape. The sail, I think, looks really good. And obviously, we can see the sail in those images where they're swimming around and whatnot. So the sail's good, and I like how it leads into the tall neural spines that extend from its tail vertebrae. This is something that we know that Spinosaurus had. It had a very basilisk-like tail, and it is represented right here. You can even see a little bit of that in the movie, like in the shots in the movie. So the tail and the sail are pretty, that rhymes. But the tail and the sail are pretty accurate. In the movie, the sail has more of a square shape. We don't really know what shape the sail had in life, so anything is fair game. So this is as accurate as really any other. The legs do seem like they're a little bit too tall. Spinosaurus did have a relatively small pelvis and relatively short legs, so it was just overall a lot more short towards the hindquarters than other theropod dinosaurs would have been. It's also worth mentioning that you can see a little bit more of the snout right here. Might as well go back to that. And you can see how it kind of thins out towards the front, and it does have like the bulbous end, like how Spinosaurus did in life. But it does become very blocky and jagged towards the base of the snout, and I think that's where a lot of those Jurassic World baryonyx comparisons come from. And I agree. I'm not really a fan of that. The more I look at this model, the more things like that kind of stick out to me. But yeah, those are pretty much all of the comparisons I can make. So what is my conclusion to that? Is this an accurate representation of Spinosaurus? Yes and no. Which probably goes without saying. There are some things that are accurate, of course, like the paddle tail. The sail looks pretty good. The arms are pretty good. The front of the snout is pretty decent. And yeah, that's about it. But there are things that are, of course, inaccurate, like the legs or the base of the snout or just the short neck. It's a mixture of accurate and inaccurate. So in essence, I don't think it's any more different from the 2001 Jurassic Park 3 Spinosaurus, because that one is kind of like a mixture of both accurate and inaccurate. Of course, the Jurassic Park 3 Spinosaurus was accurate for the time. This is very much what Spinosaurus looked like in 2001, just with a few small differences, like the snout looking a little bit more like a baryonyx snout. But it does have a few of the key traits that we think of with Spinosaurus, like, of course, that sail, the large arms with claws on them, as well as like an elongated snout. So my conclusion with that is that the Jurassic Park 3 Spinosaurus is no more accurate than this one. They're both kind of like a melting pot of both accuracy and inaccuracy. Now, of course, I will clarify, I know that there's going to be an in-universe explanation as to why these designs look the way that they do. These ones are notable because it's likely that these were among the first of the InGen clones, so they were not necessarily perfect, so to speak. My buddy, Jurassic World Biology, which by the way, go and check out his channel, he actually brought up like a really funny idea that it's like they were trying to clone Spinosaurus, but then they were cloning them with a basilisk-like tail, and they were like, well, shoot, Spinosaurus didn't look like that. It looked like any other theropod. So they thought that these were failures, and then they kind of like, they kept them at this island, and then they eventually got the Jurassic Park 3 Spinosaurus, and they were like, yes, that looks good. I don't know. I thought that was funny, and I just wanted to mention that. But okay, so that's the design. That is the design right there. No more accurate than the Jurassic Park 3 design. I don't hate this design, of course. There are some things that I like about it, and there are some things that I do dislike about it. Like the more I stare at that snout, the more I kind of dislike it. But overall, I don't think it's really a terrible design, and I'm really excited to see it more in action. I hope we get to see it on the land. I hope it's not simply just in the water, because of course, they are taking the mostly semi-aquatic route. I'm more so someone who leans towards it being like a heron lifestyle, sticking to the shallow waters, more so than being a pursuit predator in the deep waters, but that's neither here nor there. At the end of the day, I'm just really excited to see these guys in action. Again, it's interesting that they have a symbiotic relationship with the mosasaur. Can't say I ever predicted that. Can't say I'm crazy about that. But we'll see how it plays out in the movie. So again, final conclusion, it's a little bit accurate, but at the same time, not that accurate. Anyway, that's pretty much all I have for this one. Thank you guys so much for watching, and have an awesome day.